My hands trembled slightly as I handed the small digital recorder to the bailiff. Elisa's confident smile faltered for just a second as her eyes locked on the device. She had no idea what was on it, but I was about to blow her perfect world apart. But let me tell you how we got here, how my 14-year marriage imploded, how the woman I loved tried to destroy me, and how a 3-minute recording changed everything. I've always loved boats. Something about the combination of wood, water, and solitude speaks to my soul in a way few other things do. After 8 years in the Marines, including 3 tours overseas that left me with a permanent ringing in my left ear and nightmares I don't talk about, I found peace in restoring old vessels to their former glory. Bradeville, a small coastal town in Maine with more lobster traps than people, became home when I opened Murphy's Marine Restoration 7 years ago. I met Elisa during my last year of service when I was stationed at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. She worked as an administrator at a medical clinic in town. Beautiful, sharp as a tack, and with an infectious laugh that could light up a room, she was everything I wasn't: social, refined, ambitious. When she agreed to marry me, I thought I'd won the lottery. Our son Tyler came along 4 years later, a bright-eyed boy with his mother's intelligence and my stubborn streak. Despite my occasional struggles with adjusting to civilian life, we were happy, or so I believed. I worked long hours at the boatyard, but always made time for Tyler's baseball games and family dinners. Elisa built a respectable career managing the Bradeville Wellness Clinic, working directly under Dr. Richard Peterson, a well-respected physician who treated half the town at one point or another. The first sign that something was off came last winter. Small things: late nights at the clinic for inventory, new clothes, a sudden interest in fitness that had her at Ultimate Edge Gym 4 times a week with her personal trainer. I brushed it off. After 14 years of marriage, people need space to grow, right? I trusted her completely. That trust evaporated on a rainy Tuesday in April when I returned early from a boat show in Portland. I was supposed to be gone until Thursday, but a vendor canceled, cutting the event short. I pulled into our driveway at 3:30 p.m., looking forward to surprising Tyler after school. What I didn't expect was the shiny black Audi parked in my spot. Our house isn't fancy, a 2-story colonial on Cedar Street with peeling white paint I'd been meaning to touch up for 2 summers running. But it was ours, purchased with my military savings and years of hard work. As I approached the front door, I could hear music playing inside. Not Elisa's usual indie folk, but something with a heavy bass that vibrated through the porch boards. I used my key and stepped inside. The living room was empty, but 2 wine glasses sat on the coffee table, one with a smear of red lipstick, the same shade Elisa had started wearing recently. The music was coming from upstairs. I've faced enemy fire in Fallujah with less dread than I felt climbing those 14 stairs to our bedroom. The door was partially open, and the sounds coming from inside left nothing to the imagination. For a moment, I stood frozen, my mind refusing to process what my ears were telling me. Then something snapped. I pushed the door open. There was my wife, the mother of my child, with a man I recognized as Colton Drake, the tattooed fitness instructor from Ultimate Edge, who couldn't have been more than 30. They scrambled apart, Elisa clutching a sheet to her chest, her eyes wide with shock rather than shame. "Jason, you're supposed to be in Portland." She sounded annoyed, as if I'd interrupted a lunch meeting rather than caught her in our bed with another man. Colton, to his credit, looked moderately terrified. He was built like the side of a barn, with tribal tattoos snaking up his arms and a jawline you could cut glass with. But in that moment, naked except for one sock and a wrist full of beaded bracelets, he seemed to realize he was in a very dangerous situation with a former Marine who just had his world turned inside out. "Man, this isn't what it looks like," he started, reaching for his jeans. I laughed, a hollow sound that seemed to come from someone else. "It looks like you're fucking my wife in my bed. Am I missing something?" Elisa's expression shifted from shock to something harder, more calculated. "Jason, don't make a scene. Tyler will be home in less than an hour." Tyler. The mention of our son's name hit me like cold water. "Does he know about this?" Of course not," she snapped, pulling the sheet tighter. "And he doesn't need to. This doesn't concern him." "Doesn't concern him?" My voice rose despite my efforts to contain it. His mother is having an affair, and it doesn't concern him? Colton had managed to pull on his jeans and was reaching for his shirt. I should go. Stay right where you are, I said, my voice deadly quiet. To my surprise, he froze. Elisa slid out of bed, wrapping herself in the sheet. Jason, we need to talk privately. This isn't how I wanted you to find out. Find out what? That you're cheating? How long has this been going on? She sighed as if I was being deliberately obtuse. It's been almost a year, and it's not just this. She gestured between herself and Colton. I've been unhappy for a long time. We both have. We have? This was news to me. When exactly were you planning to mention that? I've tried, Jason. You don't listen. You're either at the boatyard or lost in your own head. Ever since you came back from your last tour, you've been absent. Physically here, but mentally somewhere else. I stared at her, struggling to recognize the woman I'd shared my life with for 14 years. So, this is my fault? I work 60-hour weeks to give you and Tyler a good life, and that justifies this? It's not about justification, she said, her voice cooling. It's about reality. Our marriage has been over for years. We're just going through the motions. Colton, apparently having decided he was indeed leaving, pulled on his shirt and grabbed his keys from the nightstand. Elisa, I'll call you later. Don't bother, I said. Pack whatever you keep here. You won't be coming back. He looked at Elisa, who gave him a small nod. We'll talk later, Call. The casual intimacy of the nickname hit me like a physical blow. Colleen, as if they had a whole vocabulary, a whole world that I wasn't part of. After he left, an excruciating silence filled the room. I could hear the hall clock ticking downstairs, the occasional car passing on our quiet street. Normal sounds from a world that no longer felt normal. I want a divorce, Elisa finally said, her voice surprisingly steady. I've already spoken to an attorney. We can do this amicably, for Tyler's sake. Amicably? I repeated. You've been cheating on me for a year, lying to my face every day, and you think we can do this amicably? She started gathering clothes from the floor, her movements precise and controlled. It doesn't have to be ugly, Jason. We can split everything 50-50, share custody, move on with our lives. Just like that, 14 years, just over? She turned to face me, and I was struck by the absence of emotion in her eyes. It's been over. You just didn't notice. That night, I slept in the guest room while Elisa took Tyler out for pizza to explain some changes that were coming. I lay awake until 2 a.m., replaying every moment of our marriage, searching for signs I must have missed. By morning, shock had given way to a dull, throbbing anger, not just at Elisa, but at myself. How had I been so blind? I was in the kitchen making coffee when they came downstairs the next morning. Tyler's eyes were red-rimmed, but he gave me a brave smile that broke my heart. Mom says we're going to live in 2 houses now, he said, climbing onto a stool at the counter, like Jake Donovan's parents. I poured him a glass of orange juice, struggling to keep my voice normal. That's right, buddy, but it doesn't change how much we both love you. Elisa busied herself with Tyler's breakfast, avoiding my gaze. I'll be taking Tyler to my mother's this weekend while you figure out your arrangements. My arrangements? She finally looked at me, her expression neutral. You'll need to find a place to stay. I'm keeping the house. The casual certainty with which she stated this sent a wave of disbelief through me. This is my house too, Elisa. I'm not just going to hand over the keys because you decided our marriage is inconvenient. We'll let the courts decide, she said, buttering toast with precise strokes. But Tyler needs stability, and this is his home. I'm his stability, I countered, mindful of Tyler watching our exchange with wide eyes. And this conversation needs to happen when he's not around. She shrugged. We have a meeting with my attorney tomorrow at noon, Peterson and Holt on Main Street. Don't be late. It turned out that my attorney was actually our mediator, a slick operator named Martin Holt, who made it clear from the outset that his priority was an equitable resolution that seemed to primarily benefit Elisa. The terms she proposed were breathtaking in their audacity. She would keep the house, primary custody of Tyler, and I would pay substantial child support plus alimony. The boatyard, my business, built with my bare hands, would be considered a marital asset, with her entitled to half its value. When I balked, Holt slid a document across the table. Mrs. Murphy has concerns about Tyler's safety in your care. I stared at the paper, a formal complaint alleging my unstable behavior, angry outbursts, and concerning symptoms of PTSD that create an unpredictable environment for a minor child. This is bullshit, I said, my voice dangerously low. I've never been anything but loving and stable with Tyler. The court will consider your service record and subsequent diagnosis, Holt continued smoothly. Mrs. Murphy only wants what's best for your son. I looked at Elisa, who met my gaze without flinching. You'd use my service against me? Those symptoms were mild and years ago. Were they? She asked coolly. The nightmares, the times you zoned out at Tyler's games, the way you flinch at loud noises. Don't pretend you're completely fine, Jason. We both know better. I left that meeting in a fog of betrayal and rage. Not only was Elisa leaving me for another man, but she was planning to take everything. My son, my home, my business, my dignity, using my military service as a weapon against me. The worst part was I had no idea how to fight back. She had a head start, an attorney, and apparently no qualms about destroying me completely. That night, sitting in a depressing, extended-stay hotel room, I called the only person I trusted implicitly, John Valentine, a former Marine buddy who'd become a private investigator after his discharge. John and I had served together in our first tour, and though he now lived in Boston, we'd stayed close over the years. She blindsided you, he said after I'd explained the situation. Classic ambush tactics. She's been planning this for months, maybe longer. What do I do, John? She's using my PTSD against me, making me sound dangerous. There was a long pause on the line. You fight fire with fire. She's not playing fair, so neither can you. I'll be up there tomorrow. Don't sign anything until I arrive. John was true to his word, showing up at my hotel at 7 a.m. the next morning with a laptop, surveillance equipment, and a determined gleam in his eye that I remembered well from our days in the service. First, he said, spreading files on the dingy hotel desk, you need a real attorney, not some mediator on her payroll. I've got a name, Sam Levinson, retired JAG officer, now specializes in divorces where military service is a factor. He doesn't let people weaponize PTSD. I can't afford a specialized attorney, I admitted. The boatyard does okay, but I'm not exactly flush. John waved this away. Sam owes me a favor. Big one. Now, second order of business. We need to understand what we're really dealing with. Elisa's leveraging your PTSD, but there's something off about this whole setup. The boyfriend, the sudden divorce, the scorched earth approach. It feels orchestrated. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we start digging. People who try to take everything usually have something to hide. He pulled out a digital recorder, and we document everything, every interaction, every call, every text. Maine is a one-party consent state for recordings. Use this to your advantage. Over the next 2 weeks, John and I embarked on what felt like a covert operation in my own hometown. While I maintained my normal routine at the boatyard and had supervised visits with Tyler at a local park, another humiliation Elisa had engineered, John dug into Elisa's recent activities and her relationship with Colton Drake. The boatyard became my sanctuary during those dark days. I threw myself into work, focusing on a restoration project for a 1958 Chris Craft Continental that had seen better days. There was something therapeutic about stripping away layers of old varnish and damaged wood, getting down to the solid frame beneath. If only relationships could be restored as straightforwardly as boats. My workshop at the back of the boatyard became a refuge, the only place where I felt in control. The smell of sawdust and marine varnish, the rhythmic sound of sanding, the precision required for each task, it all kept me grounded when everything else was spinning out of control. I'd stay late into the evening, working under bright shop lights, trying to exhaust myself enough to sleep without dreaming. One night, as I was finishing the delicate work of inlaying a piece of teak into the Chris Craft's dashboard, Frank Donovan, a local fisherman and longtime client, stopped by with a six-pack. Heard about what's happening, he said, popping the caps off 2 bottles and handing me one. Town's talking. I took a long pull from the beer. Great. Not like you think, Frank said, leaning against my workbench. Nobody's buying Elisa's story. Not after what happened at the Petersons' Christmas party last year. I looked up. What happened at the Petersons' party? Frank shifted uncomfortably. You didn't know. Elisa and that gym guy were pretty cozy. Nothing obvious, but people noticed. The way they disappeared at the same time, came back looking, I figured you knew, had worked it out. I had no idea, I said, a fresh wave of humiliation washing over me. So everyone had known except me. Frank clapped a weathered hand on my shoulder. You're a good man, Jason. People know that. And folks in this town don't take kindly to one of our own being treated this way, especially not a Marine who served his country. He gestured to the boat. This for the Cartwrights? I nodded, grateful for the change of subject. Summer home present for their son. Graduation gift. Nice work, Frank said, admiring the craftsmanship. Jake's been asking if Tyler can come fishing with us this weekend. Might do the boy good to get out on the water. The simple kindness nearly broke me. I'd appreciate that, Frank, but I only get supervised visits right now. Judge's orders until the custody hearing. Frank's eyebrows shot up. Supervised? That's horse shit. What judge would believe you're a danger to your own kid? The kind that only hears one side of the story, I said grimly. But we're working on changing that narrative. Dad? Tyler's voice pulled me from my thoughts during one of our supervised visits. We were at Harbor View Park, feeding ducks by the pond, while a court-appointed observer sat on a bench pretending not to watch us. Are you mad at Mom? I chose my words carefully. I'm upset about some choices Mom has made, but being mad doesn't help anything. He tossed another piece of bread to an eager mallard. She says you're sick sometimes, in your head, from the war. The casual way he said it, clearly repeating something he'd heard, made my blood boil. But I kept my voice steady. I saw some hard things in the war, but sometimes I have bad dreams about them. But I'm not sick, and I would never, ever hurt you or anyone else. Tyler nodded, seemingly satisfied. That's what I told her. You're the one who checks under my bed for monsters. Mom just tells me monsters aren't real. The simple wisdom of children. If only judges could see through adult deceptions as clearly. Dad, he continued, his voice smaller now, is it true we might move to Florida? Mom keeps talking about it with Colton when they think I'm not listening. My heart rate spiked. What exactly have they been saying? Tyler looked down, breaking off another piece of bread. That after the hearing, we'll sell the house and move south. Colton says he has friends there who can help him set up a new gym. Mom says I'll like the beaches. He looked up, his eyes filling with tears. But I don't want to leave. All my friends are here, and Grandpa's fishing boat, and you. I wanted to pull him into a hug, but the observer was watching closely. Instead, I put my hand gently on his shoulder. Tyler, I promise you're not going anywhere you don't want to go. Not to Florida, not anywhere. How can you promise that? Mom says it's already decided. Because I'm your dad, I said firmly, and I'm not giving up without a fight. Meanwhile, John's investigation was turning up disturbing connections. He'd tracked Colton's background to a series of gyms across New England, each one mysteriously closing after about 18 months of operation. His social media showed connections to several known players in underground fighting circuits. Not the regulated MMA kind, but bare-knuckle, no-rules matches held in abandoned warehouses with heavy betting. Your wife's boyfriend isn't just a pretty face, John said, showing me photos of Colton with several rough-looking men outside a warehouse in Portland. He's running money for some serious operators. What does this have to do with Elisa? John pulled up another file on his laptop. That's where it gets interesting. Look at these deposits to the clinic's community wellness program accounts. He showed me a series of transactions, cash deposits ranging from $5,000 to $15,000, made roughly twice a month for the past year. The wellness programs are Elisa's pet project at the clinic, John explained. Dr. Peterson gave her full control over them 3 years ago. Perfect setup for washing dirty money. Donations come in cash, go out as legitimate program expenses. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. Are you saying Elisa is laundering money for Colton's fighting racket? That's exactly what I'm saying. And it explains why she's going scorched earth in the divorce. It's not just about leaving you. It's about cutting all ties before you might notice something off. The revelation was staggering. The woman I'd married, the mother of my child, wasn't just unfaithful. She was criminal. And she was willing to destroy me to protect her new life. How do we prove any of this? I asked. John smiled grimly. We need her to incriminate herself, and I have a plan for that. The plan was simple but risky. John had discovered that Elisa and Colton regularly met at our house on Tuesday afternoons when Tyler had his after-school science club. With my permission, he installed small legal recording devices in the living room and kitchen. Not the bedroom. We weren't interested in their intimate moments, just their conversations about business. While we waited for them to say something incriminating, I met with Sam Levinson, the attorney John had recommended. A battle-hardened man in his 60s with silver hair and a perpetual squint, he reviewed the initial evidence of the financial irregularities with professional detachment. This is good background, he said, but without a direct connection between these deposits and your wife, it's circumstantial. What we need is for her to implicate herself. We're working on that, I assured him. Sam leaned back in his chair, studying me over half-moon reading glasses. In the meantime, we need to address these PTSD allegations head-on. I want you to get a current evaluation from an independent psychiatrist, not your VA doctor, someone with no connection to either of you. You think that will help? It can't hurt, and if your symptoms are as mild and managed as you say, it will undercut her main argument for limited custody. I followed his advice, meeting with Dr. Eleanor Chen, a no-nonsense psychiatrist with experience in combat trauma. After several thorough sessions, she provided a comprehensive report concluding that while I did experience some PTSD symptoms, they were well-managed, mild, and posed no safety risk to the patient or others, including minor children. It was validating to have a professional confirm what I already knew, but Elisa's allegations still stung. The idea that she would use my military service, the very thing that had supported our family all these years, as a weapon against me was a betrayal that cut deeper than the affair. For 2 weeks, nothing useful emerged from our recordings. Eliza and Colton were careful, speaking in vague terms when discussing anything related to money. But then came a breakthrough. 3 days before our scheduled court hearing for temporary custody arrangements, they had an argument. The clinic's legitimate accountant had flagged some discrepancies in the wellness program funding, and Dr. Peterson was asking questions. You told me he never checks the books, Colton said, his voice tense. He doesn't normally, Elisa replied, but some patient mentioned one of the non-existent programs, wanted to sign up. Richard started looking into it. Can you fix it? Of course I can fix it. I'll create some backdated materials, say the program ended due to lack of interest. But we need to be more careful, and we need to speed up our timeline. What about Jason? The hearing is Friday. I heard Elisa's dismissive laugh. Don't worry about Jason. I've built a solid case. Once the judge believes he's unstable, and she will, I've got documentation from his VA counselor that I've enhanced a bit. We get everything. The house, full custody of Tyler, and that waterfront property his grandfather left him. His PTSD diagnosis is our golden ticket. What about the clinic money? Is it clean yet? Don't worry about that. I've been running it through the wellness program accounts for months. It's untraceable. Dr. Peterson doesn't check the books. He trusts me completely. They continued discussing plans for after the divorce, moving to Florida once everything was settled, using my grandfather's property as collateral for a loan to expand Colton's fighting business. Throughout it all, Tyler was barely mentioned except as an asset to be secured. What about the kid? Colton asked at one point. Tyler will adjust, Elisa said dismissively. Children are resilient. Besides, he'll be in school most of the day. We'll hire a nanny for the rest. The casual disregard for our son's emotional well-being was the final blow. This woman wasn't just trying to take my possessions. She was treating our child as an inconvenient detail in her grand plan. Listening to the recording with John later that night, I felt an odd sense of calm replace the hurt and betrayal. This wasn't about love gone wrong or growing apart. This was about greed, pure and simple. And for the first time since walking in on them, I had leverage. Will this be enough? I asked John. It proves she's planning to lie in court, maybe commit fraud, but it doesn't directly prove the money laundering. It's enough to derail her custody case, John said confidently. And once the judge hears this, there will be questions about the clinic finances. That's when the house of cards starts falling. Sam agreed when we played him the recording. This changes everything, he said, his normally impassive face showing a rare glimpse of satisfaction. She's admitted to falsifying documents, planning to defraud the court, and there's enough reference to financial impropriety to warrant further investigation. So we use it at the hearing? Sam nodded. But strategically, we let her build her case first, get it all on record. Then we introduce the recording when it will have maximum impact. And Tyler? I asked. How do we protect him from all this? Sam's expression softened slightly. Children are resilient, but they're not pawns. We focus on showing that you're the stable parent here, the one who's putting his son's interests first. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I paced the cramped hotel room, rehearsing what I would say, how I would react when the recording played. Would Tyler eventually hear about all this? How would I explain to him that his mother had been willing to lie, to use my service-related trauma against me, all to protect her illicit relationship and criminal activities? Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Is it true? About Elisa and the clinic money? It was from Dr. Peterson. I called John immediately. How did Peterson find out? I may have sent an anonymous tip to the clinic's board about financial irregularities, John admitted. Thought it might create some additional pressure. Sam is going to kill you for interfering before the hearing. Maybe, but having the clinic already investigating helps our case, doesn't it? He had a point. By morning, I had received another text from Dr. Peterson asking to meet after the hearing. The noose was tightening around Elisa's carefully constructed scheme. As I dressed for court that morning, I looked at myself in the hotel mirror. The face staring back at me looked older, harder than it had just a month before. Divorce can age you, but betrayal ages you faster. I adjusted my tie, the same one I'd worn to our wedding, a small act of defiance, and practiced what Sam had coached me to say. Keep it simple. Stay calm. Let the evidence speak for itself. Tyler had called the night before, his voice small on the phone. Dad, are you scared about tomorrow? A little, I admitted, but sometimes doing the right thing is scary. I'm scared too, he confessed. Mom's been acting weird, talking about moving to Florida with Colton after everything's settled. My grip on the phone tightened. Has she? What did she say about you and these plans? That I'd go to a better school there, that it would be an adventure. His voice dropped. I don't want to go to Florida, Dad. I don't want to leave my friends. And I don't like how Colton talks to me when Mom's not around. What do you mean? Has he been unkind to you? There was a long pause. He calls me the baggage. Like, when do we drop off the baggage at your mom's? He thinks I can't hear him, but I do. My blood boiled, but I kept my voice steady. Tyler, I promise you this. You won't have to go anywhere you don't want to go. And after tomorrow, things are going to change for the better. You promise? I promise, buddy. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, with wood paneling that had seen better days and uncomfortable benches that forced perfect posture. Elisa sat with her attorney, a power suit making her look like she'd stepped out of a legal drama. She didn't acknowledge me when I entered, but Colton, sitting directly behind her, shot me a smug look that made my fingers itch. Judge Coleman entered, and the proceedings began. For nearly 3 hours, I sat silently as Elisa's attorney painted a picture of me as a troubled veteran, prone to dissociation and mood swings, potentially dangerous to my own child. They brought in Tyler's teacher, who reluctantly admitted I'd once seemed distracted at a parent-teacher conference. They submitted my VA records, with certain passages highlighted to seem more severe than they were. They even had my next-door neighbor testify about hearing me yell once during a phone call with a difficult client. Throughout it all, Elisa maintained a concerned, almost sorrowful expression. The loving wife who simply wanted to protect her child from an unstable father. It was a masterful performance. When it was our turn, Sam approached the bench. Your Honor, Rather than call witnesses to testify about Mr. Murphy's character, we would like to submit a single piece of evidence that we believe is directly relevant to these proceedings. That's when I handed over the recorder, and everything changed. As Elisa's voice filled the courtroom, describing her plan to use my PTSD as a golden ticket to take everything, her carefully constructed facade crumbled. By the time the recording ended, the judge's expression had shifted from neutral to openly disgusted. Your Honor, Elisa's attorney began, this recording was clearly obtained without my client's knowledge or consent. Maine is a one-party consent state, Counselor, Judge Coleman interrupted. And as Mr. Levinson has already established, Mr. Murphy was a legal resident of the home and owner of the property at the time of recording. The evidence is admissible. She turned her steely gaze to Elisa. Mrs. Murphy, these statements, if accurately attributed to you, suggest an attempt to defraud this court in potentially criminal activity regarding financial matters at your place of employment. Elisa's composure finally broke. That recording is taken out of context, she said, her voice shrill. Jason has edited it to make me sound. The recording has been authenticated by a forensic audio expert, Sam interjected, sliding another document to the judge. No editing or manipulation. Judge Coleman reviewed the authentication report, then looked up. In light of this new evidence, I'm inclined to view Mrs. Murphy's claims about her husband's stability with considerable skepticism. Furthermore, I am deeply concerned about her fitness as a primary caregiver, given the apparent willingness to falsify information to this court. She straightened her papers. Mr. Levinson, does your client wish to amend his petition regarding custody arrangements? Sam nodded. Yes, Your Honor. In light of the evidence suggesting Mrs. Murphy's involvement in potentially criminal financial activities, we are requesting temporary full custody for Mr. Murphy with supervised visitation for Mrs. Murphy pending investigation of these matters. Colton chose that moment to stand and head for the exit. The judge noticed. Sir, this court is still in session. Please return to your seat. I'm not involved in this, Colton protested. I'm just a friend of the family. A friend mentioned prominently in a recording discussing potentially criminal activities. Judge Coleman noted dryly. Sit down, sir, or I'll have the bailiff assist you. Colton sat, his face a mask of barely contained panic. Elisa stared straight ahead, her knuckles white as she gripped the table. Judge Coleman turned back to us. Mr. Murphy, these are serious allegations about Mrs. Murphy's conduct. Do you have any additional evidence regarding the financial improprieties mentioned in the recording? Sam stepped forward. Your Honor, we have documentation showing irregular cash deposits to accounts managed by Mrs. Murphy at Bradeville Wellness Clinic. Additionally, we have been informed that the clinic's board has already opened an internal investigation into these matters. The judge nodded. Very well. Given the evidence presented, I am granting temporary full custody of Tyler Murphy to his father, Jason Murphy, effective immediately. Mrs. Murphy will have supervised visitation twice weekly at the family center until this court reconvenes to make final determinations. She fixed Elisa with a hard stare. Additionally, I am referring the content of this recording to the district attorney's office for review of possible criminal charges including perjury, fraud, and financial crimes. As the judge's gavel came down, the courtroom erupted in murmurs. Elisa sat frozen, her face ashen. Colton was already heading for the door again, this time unhindered by the court. Her attorney was whispering urgently in her ear, but she seemed beyond hearing. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Outside the courthouse, Sam clapped me on the shoulder. That went better than expected. The judge isn't just giving you custody. She's opening the door for criminal charges. The DA will be very interested in those clinic finances. What happens now, I asked, still processing the magnitude of what had just occurred. Now you go home, to your home with your son. Elisa has 24 hours to vacate the premises, and then you start rebuilding. He gave me a knowing look. It won't be easy. Tyler will have questions. Elisa will likely face serious legal consequences. But you've got truth on your side now. John, who had been sitting quietly in the back of the courtroom, joined us on the steps. Told you we'd get her, he said with grim satisfaction. We didn't do this to get her, I corrected him. We did it to protect Tyler and me from her lies. There's a difference. The first night back in our house was surreal. Eliza had cleared out her personal belongings in a hurry, leaving subtle gaps on bookshelves and in closets that felt like missing teeth. Tyler was quiet, confused by the sudden reversal of his mother's carefully constructed narrative. "Is Mom in trouble?" he asked as I tucked him into bed. I sat on the edge of his mattress, choosing my words carefully. "Mom made some mistakes, buddy. She's going to have to answer for them." "Because of the recording? I heard Mrs. Donovan talking about it when she dropped me off." News travels fast in small towns. "Yes, because of the recording. Sometimes people say things they shouldn't, and it catches up with them." He was quiet for a moment, picking at a loose thread on his comforter. "Did Mom lie about you? About you being sick?" My heart broke a little at the directness of his question. "She exaggerated some things. I do have bad dreams sometimes from my time in the Marines, but I'm not dangerous, and I would never hurt you, never." He nodded, seemingly satisfied. "I know that, Dad. You're the one who taught me that real men protect people, not hurt them." I kissed his forehead, amazed at his resilience. "That's right, buddy. Now get some sleep. We've got a lot of rebuilding to do." The aftermath unfolded with the messy complexity of real life. True to Sam's prediction, the district attorney opened an investigation into the clinic's finances. Dr. Peterson, devastated by the betrayal, cooperated fully. Within weeks, the extent of Elisa's fraud was clear. She had diverted over $200,000 of clinic funds to various shell accounts over the past 18 months. She was good at covering her tracks, Dr. Peterson told me during a grim meeting at his office. "Created fake vendors, forged my signature on authorizations. I trusted her completely." "I know the feeling," I said. He looked at me with genuine sympathy. "For what it's worth, Jason, everyone in town is on your side. The way she tried to use your service against you, it's unforgivable." The community's response surprised me. People I barely knew stopped by the boatyard with casseroles, offers to babysit, or just to express support. Sheriff Callahan made a point of driving past our house on Cedar Street during his evening rounds, giving a friendly wave if we were outside. Tyler's baseball coach scheduled extra practices, giving my son a healthy outlet for his confusion and anger. The town had closed ranks around us, providing a safety net I hadn't known we needed. Colton disappeared the day of the hearing, apparently fleeing to Florida without Elisa. His gym abruptly closed, leaving members with worthless contracts and the landlord with months of unpaid rent. Rumors swirled about his fighting operation, but without his presence, the investigation stalled on that front. Elisa initially stayed with her mother, having supervised visits with Tyler twice a week at a family center. Those first visits were awkward, tense affairs. Tyler, confused and hurt by the sudden changes, asked questions neither of us was fully prepared to answer. "Why did Mom take money that wasn't hers?" he asked one night as I tucked him in. I struggled to find words that would preserve some shred of his relationship with his mother. "Sometimes good people make bad choices, buddy. Mom made some mistakes, but she still loves you very much." "Are they going to put her in jail?" The question I'd been dreading. "I don't know. That's for a different judge to decide, but no matter what happens, you'll be okay. We'll be okay." The boatyard became our sanctuary during those turbulent months. I brought Tyler with me on weekends, teaching him how to sand teak decks and apply varnish. There was something healing for both of us in the simple, honest work of restoration. While our hands stayed busy, we talked about school, about his feelings, about the future. Never about the past. Some broken things can't be fixed. They can only be acknowledged and left behind. "Dad, can I help with the wiring on the Pearson?" Tyler asked one Saturday, his small face serious beneath a too large work cap. "That's pretty advanced stuff, buddy. Maybe start with something simpler." He squared his shoulders. "Mom always said I was too little to do important things. I'm not too little." I studied my son, seeing for the first time how Elisa's dismissiveness had affected him. "You know what? You're right. Get the wire strippers. I'll show you how it's done." His smile was worth everything we'd been through. 3 months after the hearing, Elisa was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. She accepted a plea deal, 2 years in a minimum security facility, plus restitution. The day before she was due to report to prison, she asked to meet me at a coffee shop in town. She looked different, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes and her previously immaculate hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. The confident, calculating woman from the courtroom was gone, replaced by someone who seemed diminished, almost fragile. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as I sat down across from her. "I know you have every reason to refuse." "Tyler asked me to," I replied honestly. "He wanted me to give you this." I slid a sealed envelope across the table, a card he'd made, covered in glitter, and earnest misspelled wishes for her to get better soon. She held the envelope without opening it, her fingers trembling slightly. "How is he?" "Processing. His therapist says he's doing as well as can be expected." She nodded, eyes fixed on the table. "I'm sorry, Jason, not just for getting caught, for all of it. I don't expect you to believe that, but it's true." I studied her, searching for the woman I'd married, the mother of my child. "What happened, Elisa? We had a good life. Was it really so terrible being married to me?" "No," she said quietly. "It wasn't terrible, it was just ordinary. After a while, I felt invisible. Colton made me feel seen." She glanced up, then away. "He's in Mexico, by the way. Never even called to see if I was okay after the hearing." "I'm not surprised." "I should have been." She traced a pattern on the table with her finger. The money was his idea initially, just a small amount to help hide some betting proceeds. Then it got bigger, and suddenly we were in too deep to stop. She finally looked up at me. "The things I said about you, about your PTSD, I knew they weren't true. You've always been a good father." "Then why did you try to take Tyler from me?" "Because I needed to win," she said simply. In my mind, winning meant taking everything. I didn't think about what that would do to Tarn, or to you. She blinked rapidly. "I've had a lot of time to think lately, about the kind of person I've become. It wasn't enough, nothing could be enough to erase what she'd done, but it was something, an acknowledgement at least." "Take care of yourself in there," I said, standing to leave. "Tyler needs you to come out stronger. Better. He deserves that much." "And you?" she asked. "What do you deserve?" I considered the question. Peace. Finally, some peace. The following weekend, I took Tyler to my grandfather's waterfront property, the one Elisa and Colton had planned to use as collateral for their fighting business. It was just a simple cabin on a rocky point, nothing fancy, but the view of the Atlantic was priceless. We spent the day skipping stones and building a fire pit near the shore. "Dad," Tyler asked as we roasted hot dogs over the flames, "are we going to be okay?" I looked at my son, his face serious beyond his years in the flickering firelight. "Yeah, buddy, we're going to be just fine. But Mom's in jail and it's just us now." "For a while, yes, but your mom will serve her time and then she'll be back in your life. And in the meantime, you've got me, Grandma, and Grandpa, your friends at school. We're not alone." He nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Can we come up here more often? It's peaceful." "Anytime you want," I promised. "Maybe we could fix up the cabin, make it our special place." "I'd like that," he said, smiling for what felt like the first time in months. 6 months later, life had found a new rhythm. The boatyard was thriving thanks to a contract restoring a fleet of antique Chris crafts for a wealthy summer resident. Tyler was adjusting to his new normal, split between school, baseball, and weekly video calls with Elisa. The house on Cedar Street had been repainted, a sunny yellow that Tyler picked out, claiming white was too boring for a fresh start. John had returned to Boston but called regularly to check in. "Any word from Loverboy?" he asked during one such call. "Colton? Last I heard, he got picked up in Tampa for running the same fighting scam down there. Apparently he's not as smart as he thought. And how's the dating scene for a single dad in Braidville? Breaking hearts left and right?" I laughed. "Hardly, though Tyler's math teacher has been finding a lot of excuses to schedule parent conferences lately." "Attaboy," John chuckled. "So it was worth it? All the ugliness, the recordings, the court battle?" I glanced out the window to where Tyler was shooting baskets in the driveway, his face scrunched in concentration as he lined up a shot. The evening sun caught his hair, turning it to fire just like his mother's. "Worth it," I confirmed. "Not the way I would have chosen, but we're okay. We're going to be okay." The ball swished through the net, and Tyler pumped his fist in triumph, turning to make sure I'd seen. I gave him a thumbs up through the window, my heart full.